So you have the regular Diablo 2 experience, but you can also play Classic. So I've done a Classic Barbarian before, and I figured why not do a Necro. So we start off by admiring our beautiful stash. And then we head towards the Den of Evil, where we almost died to corpse fire. But with our new skeletons, we make it into the underground passage where we fight a bunch of vile hunters. And one big difference between Classic and the Lord of Destruction expansion is that in the Classic version of the game, the skeletons aren't actually that strong. So in Lord of Destruction, the expanded edition, the standard resurrected edition, the summon necromancer is actually one of the best builds in the game, but it's a lot weaker in the classic version of the game. But first off, just know, like, things are just way scarier for the skeletons. Like, the skeletons actually lose fights in this. But they do manage to kill the smith, so with that we head towards Andariel, who just isn't a problem. It's still the Act 1 boss. We end up finding a cool ring. Then we head towards Act 2 with all of our skeletons. And wait a second, where are my skeletons? So in Classic, you do not take your skeletons and summons and all of that other bullcrap with you. Every single act you have to restart your engine, as it were, to make sure that you can get going and have some skeletons. So that's not that bad in normal, but it's a problem in Nightmare and Hell for sure. I end up finding a angelic ring, which is just 20 life. And with my army of skeletons, I just make it towards the cube. So I use amplified damage here to make them deal more damage. And in Act 2, I already have my stash full, so I'm very happy with the cube, because that means I get to re-roll some bone wands and some jewel wands. And what I'm looking for here is just plus skills. I also start to gamble some gear. Basically anything with a bunch of resistances and some life is good in normal. There are no rune words in Classic, so you really need to just get your gear whatever way you want. And armors are all crap, so that's just good to know, I guess. Just a fair warning, if you play Classic, every single armor you will ever find is bad. I don't know what's up with that, just all of them are bad, I don't know why. Like, the best you can do is like double res with some life. Oh, I almost died to the summoner here. I get to 28 HP. It's way too close, so I run and decide to make a resistance shield. And then we head towards Duriel. And that one skeleton just doesn't know where the fight is apparently. Who with the power of Iron Maiden takes a while but does go down. And then we head towards Act 3. And we lose our skeletons again. With the power of a mercenary I end up making some new ones. And I find a unique full helm, and that's a Dusk Deep. And you're thinking to yourself, like, Nuclear Rabbit, why the actual are you showing this? And it's because it's one of the best helms in the game. And I find some chance guards, 32%, so that's nice. I also end up finding a set belt for some 20 life, some 20 cold resist. And resistances in Classic go a lot further than they do in Lord of Destruction in the full game. Because you go to minus 50 in Hell instead of minus 100. And then we have a go at the Council, who in normal just go down perfectly fine, no problems there. The skeletons can just surround them and kill them, so that's nice. And then we head towards Mephisto. So the big danger here is the blue little ghosts. Just be careful and wary of them. And as long as you can dodge those, the Mephisto will go down very quickly. And then for Act 4, which is the biggest problem, you can't hire a mercenary here. So what do? You take a golem and you take Iron Maiden and you pray. That's literally the plan. So first time I get a spawn that doesn't really do stuff. So I get a second spawn and I Iron Maiden some Doom Knights. And I melee them as well. Because, you know, you gotta start somewhere. I mean, as soon as you have the first skeleton, the game just starts going. But getting that first one, especially in Hell, was just miserable. I also pressed the wrong button. That's why I did corpse explosion instead of getting a skeleton. But I do end up getting my skeleton army and I make it towards Isual. And then we head towards the Chaos Sanctuary, where the butlers of Diablo are waiting for us once again. And you can really tell that the skeletons are actually just kind of struggling. But they do get there. And then it's Diablo time. And Diablo has a big problem with your skeletons in that he absolutely fucking evaporates them. So we go for our backup strategy, which is Iron Maiden and a Golem. But yeah, fights like these really show how much weaker the Necromancer, the Summon Monster, is in Classic. You do the same strategy in the full game, but you have a lot more to work with. You have items that can actually boost. You can get some skills. You can get like a lore if you really grind. You can get something going. And here you just run around and cast golems, and you look around for skeletons and hope for the best. So I go through the Chaos Sanctuary, which is why I didn't want to use Corpse Explosion in it. So I can get some skeletons going. And after reloading, we go back towards Diablo, who will still make absolute complete mincemeat out of my minions. Because basically what I'm trying to do is hope that Diablo just decides to slap my golem, or me, while Iron Maiden is on him and that deals him some damage. And that's it, that's the game plan. And if you're thinking that's not a good plan, you're correct, it's not. It works, but it's tedious as shit. So time for the second round of skeletons. Recast my golem. Lose the golem immediately. Lose half the skeletons a few seconds later. I should really do that more aggressively. Anyway, time for the third round of skeletons. And this is really nice, he walks out of the pentagram, so now he can be surrounded by the skeletons, which helps with the damage a bit. And you can tell now he's getting surrounded that he's actually just taking some real damage. And there he goes, he is down for normal. So this is my gear for now. As you can tell, in Classic, gear just isn't that spectacular, and by that I mean absolutely unusable in the full game. I'm level 28 right now. And these are my skills. Just all in on the skeletons. And then we head towards Nightmare, where I once again have to use Iron Maiden, a Golem and a Dream to get my first skeleton. The one thing that really happens in Nightmare is that your skeletons start just losing the fight. Also because I just didn't spec into summon resist, but I just lost this fight, like straight up just lost it. And go ahead and get some new skeletons. And with those I just run towards Andariel, where you can really see there is still strength in numbers. Also, one thing I do have to say though is that the Blood Golem looks really fucking cool in Diablo 2 Resurrected. And I'm also using Corpse Explosion to speed up the Andariel fight a bunch. Because Corpse Explosion is 50-50 fire damage and physical damage, and Andariel is very weak to fire. And after making it through Act 2, it is time for the Duriel fight. And one thing you see me doing here is I'm using an Iron Golem with a Thorns Aura. Because in the expansion I would be using the Thorns Aura myself on a bow. But I can't do that here because, well, there's no runes. And the other thing I would be doing is using a Might Mercenary for some more damage. Which I also can do. Well, I can do it in Act 2, but at that point it just doesn't matter. Because it's just such a little part of the game. And the third thing I would do is get a Shale Coeld for a Fanaticism Aura. So I'm 3 auras short on damage here. And at this point you can really start to tell the difference. Because I summon Necro in the expansion just plows through the rest of the game. You have the start of the game, which is pretty dangerous until you get kind of going, like level 20, 25. And after that a summon Necro is just an S tier build, plows through everything. However, in Classic, you're kind of struggling. 3 hours is a big difference to not have. So even in Nightmare, I'm just doing the Iron Maiden strat. And it's going fine, but the expansion version of this just destroys this fight. I would also have farmed for a Dull IO if I wasn't going for a Harmony Bow. I would have also gone for a White if I hadn't gone for the Thorns Aura Bow, so that's a safer version of the build. But both versions are much stronger than what you get in Classic. The Summon Necro really got a big buff in the expansion. And I'm finding another rare ring, this time not that exciting. So in Act 3 you have the luck. And I honestly think this is the reason why these are here. You get to kill the flesh beast to get your skeletons going. And I usually was like, I don't care. It's just lore, who cares? But I was so happy with the flesh beast here because they're very easy to Iron Maiden to death. Which means you get to get going. And here I have to be very careful, the trashers punch me in the face a bunch. And you have to be very careful on which aura you use on which monster. Like the Trashers and the Blunderballs and stuff, I am using Iron Maiden on because it's just more damage than using amplified damage. I end up finding a Venom Ward and you're thinking like, why do you care? It's Nightmare. Venom Ward is just a legit good armor in this game. I mean, Venom Ward is seriously just endgame GG gear. Well, maybe not GG, but it's definitely just endgame worthy. Which is so funny because you don't even pick them up in the expansion. And then for the council we lose the fight, so I go and upgrade my gear a bunch. I get a better belt, I get some boots. And as you can tell, I'm gambling all of it because having to farm a boss like Andariel is super miserable if every single time you have to revive all your skeletons using Iron Maiden. So I'm getting some more resistances, some more life. I make a new shield. And I was low on lightning resist, so I end up putting a perfect topaz in it. This is basically just an ancient splash in the classic. I also end up buying a +2 skill Dew wand. With all those upgrades, it is time to fight the council again. And this time it goes much better, as you can tell. Like +2 skills on a summon necromancer is just such a big upgrade. And now it's just a matter of guiding the skeletons towards the council and they'll figure it out from there. I'm also at the point where I have specced into summon resist and I have some revives as well. So now I'm outnumbering the things that are attacking me. Which is always a major tipping point for a build like this. And you can see the difference a bunch of gear makes. And it's really just showcased by surrounding Mephisto here. And the revives just dealing a lot of damage with the firewall. And one thing you'll see me do in Classic that I don't do in the expansion version of this is I'm using skeleton mages. And that's because I just need something that has some range for mostly the maggot lair. But it's also just nice to have like this first circle of things that are taking damage. And as you can tell here, the council like doesn't really know where to go because they're revived, but there's no space. And the skeleton mages can just fire from the back, so that's just a bit more damage. Because I found this build to be really lacking in damage when you're not the corpse exploding. Like you start off, get a few skeletons, and things start to die and it's all fine. And then you corpse explosion some stuff, and that's all nice and stuff. And then you corpse explosion some things, and that's all well and good. But when you don't have a corpse to explode, this build's very lackluster in damage in the classic version. I mean, that is Mephisto with amplified damage while being surrounded by a bunch of stuff. This is not a fast kill at all. I mean, he's gonna go down, this is super safe. But it's not fast. While the expansion version I did of this had like 15-20 seconds boss fight. And in Act 4, once again, all we have to work with is a golem and Iron Maiden. And that made Act 4 honestly just miserable on this character. Like, please just give me a mercenary or something to work with. I mean, you can tell this is sped up quite significantly and it still takes forever to get going. And then once you're going, it's just business as usual. Use the skeletons, blow up some stuff with corpse explosion, claim your skill points, and head towards Diablo. And I've mentioned this a lot of times, but I'm gonna mention it again. When in Nightmare or Hell, just go right up to Diablo. He can't hit you with the lightning. It makes the fight so much easier. So after Nightmare, this is what we're looking like. Which brings us to Hell, where, yeah, it's just the same little trick. Use Iron Maiden till you can get a skeleton. And then use all of those skeletons to wage war on the legions of Hell. And use a lot of corpse explosion until you get to the act boss. And you can just tell at this point I'm outnumbering the monsters. So I am winning the fights, but honestly, if you want to play this build, just do it on the expansion. You have so much more to work with. The build feels much more powerful on the expansion. If you want to do like a challenge run of this build, try the classic version. Because I do have to say, it's very satisfying to have like your own army of minions just walk into a room and slowly but surely take command of the room. It just takes forever because I don't deal a lot of damage, so the skeletons do end up dying. But there are so many corpses around, I can just refill when I need to. I just wish that the skeletons would all target the same thing. Like, I don't care about these afflicted at all, please just target Andariel. But you have no influence on that. So it takes forever and my skeletons do end up dying in the end. So I have to go back to the cold plains and do the Iron Maiden strat on some Fallens. And I just decide to clear out some more so I can get some revives as well. So with 17 minions in hand and the golem, I lock them all up in the door for Andariel, so I can't use my power and separate them all at all. So one thing you can do in a situation like this is just use a town portal, go back to town and come back in. So you can position your skeletons. But at this point I figure like, okay, she's almost dead, it's fine, it is what it is. But her standing in the door is like the worst case scenario for this. And then I say goodbye to my little friends again, and as I'm all alone into Act 2, Luckily I can hire a mercenary to make sure that I can get some stuff going again quickly. I can hire a mercenary. Well, he's dead, so let's just do the Iron Maiden thing again. Well, guess what? Golem's dead as well. And in hell it's just such a train wreck to get going. Like, I feel like every single act should have like 1 or 2 skeletons laying around at the start of the act, to make sure that you can just get going on your summon Necro, because just skipping this part of the run would make this so much more fun. But we have some skeletons, so it is time for the Maggot Lair. And yeah, it's just a slowly but surely you will get through it kind of deal. For the expansion you can hire a fire or lightning mercenary or cold mercenary in Act 3. They will get through the Maggot Lair very efficiently, well, compared to this. But I ended up going for skeleton mages, which is a choice I never expected to make in my life. But I'm not here to be entertained, I'm here to suffer so you guys are entertained. And girls, there are a few girls that watch the channel, but it's mostly men. I'm talking like 98% men, which I can claim surprises me, but it really doesn't. And after the Maggot Lair, it's time for the next miserable area in the game, so I almost end up dying in the Arcane Sanctuary and escaping by a town portal, and after that I just make it towards Duriel, where between revives, skeletons, mages and a golem, I have another very slow and tedious fight, but also a very safe fight, because he can just Iron Maiden himself to death. And in the expansion at this point you have fanaticism, you have might, you have thorns, and this fight is just a complete fucking cakewalk. And it's not a hard fight now, but it's not as good. Like this entire build is like the same, but worse. It's like we have Summon Necro at home kind of vibes compared to the expansion. I do end up finding this Necromancer amulet, which is amazing. And then we are towards Act 3, where we have a Cesark the Burning, who is always just a very strong fight. And he's physical immune, so I just amplify damage him and corpse explosion him. But he is one of the main things you need to look out for in Act 3. And the other thing is of course the council. And you can just tell I'm surrounding the council members one by one, because I really need to do that, because when I don't, things go very wrong very quickly. As you can tell by the number of skeletons I have plummeting, I lost the footage for the rest of Act 3. So sorry about that. So here's Act 4, me trying to get something going. I end up trying a Iron Golem as well. I did think about replaying Act 3, but it didn't seem worth it. Like the council the second time I just walked in and killed them when I had refilled the skeletons, and the Mephisto fight and the Durans just aren't that spectacular, so I was like, ah fuck it, we'll just skip the footage for next time. This video is gonna be long enough no matter what. So anyway, a few attempts later on trying to get something going, I do manage to revive a skeleton, and with that we are heading towards the end of our journey. All I have to do is walk past some souls, because of course there's some souls. And then we find ourselves in the humble abode of Mr. Diablo, where some ghosts give me a bit of a scare, but at this point I have 18 minions and a golem. So I'm just gonna stand around cowardly, I mean very general like. And I love this Lord the Size trick, where if you surround Lord the Size, he just bugs out and runs around and does nothing, it's great. And we have one final fight before we head towards Diablo with some Venom Lords. And once Infector goes down, it is time for Diablo. But yeah, for the final time we are just using Iron Maiden to kill Diablo. I do think the Fire Golem looks really cool with the ice damage of Diablo himself. But yeah, at this point not a hard fight at all, so it's just a matter of time before he goes down. The biggest differences are just you have way more options to work with in the expansion. You have the Thorns Aura, you can get Fanaticism, you can get Might in every act. You have way more gear options, you have Rune Words, so you have a lot more to work with. This really just feels like I just mentioned, this just really feels like Summon Necro at home. But this is the final gear. But I would use none of this in the expansion. Like I would toss it on the ground and be very happy to never see it again. These are my skills. And that's it, Euronymous, level 59, a king. Thank you for watching, see you in the next one, bye bye.